All right, welcome back to quarter one, week 6, day 1. This is video number 25. Today we are going to actually make the UV we have. Last time we ended up with this box, right? And the box has a modifier on it. So I'm going to select that and just go into the modifier, which is unwrap UVW. Open the UV editor, and we have this layout, this UV layout, where each one of the faces of the box is taking up a different amount of space. All right, it looks really bad right now, but what we're going to do is we're going to use this. Last time we exported this out into what we called crate 2048_UV. Now you'll notice from here on out I'm going to start putting an underscore after a lot of the image files. Image files in particular can get a little tricky because we use a bunch of different types. If there's anything that's like a colored image or something that we actually make in Photoshop, usually I call it a DM. That stands for diffuse map, and we know that that's going to go into a diffuse map slot. But today we're going to start with this underscore UV. The underscore UV is always going to be a PNG file, and it's always going to have transparency on. All UVs that we create in this class will be 2048 by 2048. The reason is we want to make it bigger so that it's nice and nice high resolution, so that we can then take that and then shrink it down for our current resolution needs. You can make things smaller, but you can't make them bigger without getting weird pixelating nastiness. So today we're going to take this UV and we're going to open it in Photoshop. Now I already have Photoshop open. Today we're using CS6, and CS6 is cool enough. If you're using Creative Cloud, it still works basically the same way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this image, this UV image, and I'm just going to drag it into this open work area in Photoshop. Now we've already done some Photoshop work, but right now this is what we're going to start with. It looks blank because you can't really see anything. If you look really close, I'm holding Alt. Actually, let me turn on my key bindings here. If I hold on Alt, you can see closely that there's green lines. I'm going to double click on this layer, and I'm going to call it UV and hit enter. Now I'm also going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this background. Background is just something that's going to go below the UV layer so we can see it. I'm going to take this background layer and I'm going to fill it in with black. So I'm going to hit this little arrow here, and then I'm going to go to the paint bucket tool, which is here. And you might have it as the gradient tool if you haven't used Photoshop yet. It's up here, and then make sure it says paint bucket, and then just click, make sure background is selected, and click anywhere in there. When you do that, it's going to show you your UV because now you have a black background. We're just using this to work with. We'll actually get rid of it when it's actually time to work. So anyway, we know that this file, we want this, each one of these squares needs to look like part of the crate. So I'm going to take this image, this crate 256 DM, and drag it in here. As always, all of these files can be found inside. There's a Google Drive that's linked in the description file of this video, so you can find that. Now you'll notice that this is kind of a small image, and it's kind of blurry, and I did that intentionally because I want you to see the difference between a small image that we then blow up and a big image that we use. So this small image, I'm going to line it up here. I want to make sure it's lined up just right. I'm going to put it a little bit over the edge by 1 pixel, and then I'm going to drag it all the way up to the other side. If I hold shift, it'll resize evenly. I want to make sure I drag it all the way up so it's 1 pixel bigger than the green line. Alright, so there we go. When I'm done and I'm happy where I placed it, I'm going to hit enter, and now it's placed. So this is that image, and you can see it's kind of blurry, and that's going to be the way it is for now, but that's okay. So now let's pull in another one of our images from our folder. Let's go ahead and grab the crate 512 DM, bring that in. Now you'll notice it's actually bigger than the size that we need, right? So we're going to put that down here somewhere. We're going to align it like before. You can actually nudge things by 1 pixel by selecting and pressing the down arrow. So I'm going to nudge it till it's exactly aligned. I'm going to hit Alt, zoom out. I'm going to scale down a little bit, zoom in. I want to make sure I hold shift as I drag this so it keeps the same dimensions, and I'm going to shift drag it again to get it 1 pixel outside the box. I'm going to nudge it 1 over. There we go. Alright, so cool. So now that's placed properly. I may have to right click in there and then hit enter. Okay, cool. So you'll notice that we maybe have 2 pixels on one side, 1 or 2 pixels, not a big deal. Just make sure it's going outside the green edges. You want to make sure that everything that you do is slightly outside the green edges, because the green edges will change from thing to thing. And you also want to make sure you group things by color, but we'll talk more about that later. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take our crate 1024 image and drag it in. So you'll notice as this comes in, it is the biggest of all of them. It should be, by its own design, it should be set to 1024 by 1024, which is about a quarter of the size of this image. Now you'll notice a quarter of the size is still not as big as what we actually have. But by the time we take the resolution of this image down, it'll fit a little better. So once again, I'm going to scale this down until it's 1 pixel past. Now I've got a little overlap, but luckily all the wood here is basically the same, so it's not going to be that much of a difference. Remember to hold shift as you drag so that you keep everything appropriately sized. There. Whoops, wrong button. Okay, cool. So you'll notice there's not a whole lot of space between them. There probably should be a little more space, maybe like 4 or 5 pixels, because when we drop the resolution, it's going to be rough. If the difference between the images was more significant, I think I'd be more worried. But since it's not, and since it's all very wood colored, it's going to be okay. So we've got this basic image set up here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this image here, all right, place it by hitting enter, and I'm going to copy it. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to take this original 256 image, duplicate this layer, all right, and then move it down to there. It should roughly fit, roughly. Control T, make sure it fits. There. That fits on that side. Let's make sure it fits on the other side. And once again, I'm using the nudge tool to make sure it fits. By using the arrow keys, I'm going to nudge it down 1 so that it fits there. And double check the top again. 1 outside. Should be perfect because it is square. And there we go. Cool, 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 cool. Hit enter. All right, now you'll notice that it's more blurry than the others, and I did that by design. Generally, we want it all to be equally the equal resolution, but this time I'm kind of trying to prove a point. All right, now I'll go ahead and take that copy and copy that layer, duplicate layer, click OK, then hold shift and drag it over. It should fit relatively perfectly. I'm going to nudge it a little bit, Control T, boom, 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 and go back. The other side. If it needs to be a little bit bigger, we can make it a little bit bigger. There. I like to be consistent. And it's a little outside, so there we go. Hit enter. It's placed, and now I'm going to do the same thing one more time. Now you'll notice that I'm using almost every single pixel in this image. That's a good idea. We want to use as much space of the UV as possible because that means we're going to be using this space efficiently. All right. Now, honestly, there are ways to make this more efficient, although using all of the available space is one of the best things, or the best ways. Control T, enter, Control T. Now I should be able to nudge. Using all the available space is one of the most important things you can do with the UV. The more of it, the most available space that you can use, the more available space you use, the better. Yeah, I might be able to get a little bit tighter on that. Okay. I think I can do that. Shift, drag 1 pixel. 1 pixel. Man, how detail oriented is this class? Okay, cool. So now we've got our image, and I'm going to hit enter. You can tell the difference between the 2 images a lot. Like this image here is way more crisp than this. This is much more blurry than that. Like it may be hard to tell on YouTube, but when you actually are working with it, you'll be done. So this is our colored in coloring book. Remember, we had our original page up here. Now we want to make sure that this UV layer stays on top so we can see it. If we put it down at the bottom, or if yours isn't showing up, make sure it's at the top. So now we've got this sort of layout. I'm going to, just to be safe, I'm going to take all those. I'm actually going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this DM. And I'm going to hold shift, grab all of those, and then drag them into that folder. That way, if I want to hide them, I can show you what your coloring book's supposed to look like. All right, now we're ready to export. I'm going to turn off the background. Actually, I'm going to take the background color, and just to be safe, I'm going to choose a color from the image that I've got. I'm going to zoom in a little more. I'm going to choose one of these edge colors, right? Like that one, okay? Cool. That edge color is very, very close to what all the edges of the boxes are. So I'm going to use that as my background color, right? That way, if we have any bleeding of the image out, you won't really tell. Okay, if it's black, you might be able to tell. Black in this case wouldn't be terrible, but it's good for now. Okay, so what we want to do is go File. I'm going to save this as I'm going to save it in the folder that I made it in, but I'm going to call it crate_DM. Okay, hit save. And this is going to be a PSD file, so it's going to be a Photoshop file. Now the cool part is, and I'm going to sort of minimize this, I've got this crate DM file. I can actually use that in here. I'm going to hit M for material, my material editor, and then I'm going to show you where it popped up. I'm going to actually right click, materials, let's go scanline, standard for now. Now I'm going to grab my folder here, and I'm going to drag my crate DM in here. It comes in as a bitmap because it knows that that's going to be a bitmap. We're going to attach that to diffuse color. Double click it, make sure we're showing it in viewport, which is up here, and then assign material to selection because we already have this object selected. Boom. Now you'll notice that because we have this laid out, it instantly looks a lot better, and you can tell where each one of our faces are. In the Edit UVW pane, you can change checker pat to map 3, or if you reset them or reset texture list, you'll see that our texture is actually in there. So now we can look at it. There you go. See how nice and crisp that is? How blurry that is? Big difference. If you look at it from here, it looks nice. If you look at it from here, it's blurry. That's because this is 256 pixels across, whereas this is 1024 pixels across, and this is 512. Now, the thing about this image is 1/4 the size of this top image, and this top image is 1/4 the size of that. So this is 1/16 the size of this. So that's a big difference. And from far away, you can't really tell. However, the closer you get, the more you realize that there is a significant difference in the image, the way it looks. Now, I'm actually going to turn off edge faces for a second, just so we can sort of see. Let's go ahead and turn high quality on. No, think about it for a second. There. Now, you may notice that I've got green lines. This is very, very common because what happened? Oh noes, we made a mistake. We accidentally left our UV image on. So we actually have green lines in our image. So all we need to do is turn that off and then save it again. Here's the best part, and here's why I actually did that. If you go to File, Save, it saves it, and that image is now updating inside here in real time. So if you wanted to change the way things look, you can change them and look at the action, like what sort of changes you made. So for instance, if I want to open Photoshop up again and I want to create a new layer, right? I'm going to just create a new layer. I'm going to put it up here and call it Doodle, just so we know. And then I'm going to grab my pen and be like brown, sure. Woo! Save. Now, woo! So there you go. In real time, it updates, which is really helpful if you have a much more complicated project, because you can see instantly what you're doing. All right. So that's your goal. Today, you're going to take the images that I have, and I want you to adjust them and make sure that you understand how this works. UVing can be very complicated, but I think with the right practice and the right understanding, you can definitely be successful at it. And this is called planar mapping. So basically what we're doing is just taking that image and projecting it onto each individual side. And we'll talk more about other types of mapping in the next video. But for now, go ahead and keep working on this box. Make sure that your box looks about the same. Understand the differences in texture density and size. As we finish here, I want you to look at the size of these images. So this 256 is 129K. This one, properties, is 2060K. Right? If you look at how many, it's 2 megabytes. And then, wait, details. Oh, this one's 1024. Man. And this one's also 2006, 2.06. So anyway, yours will be different because I'll fix that because that was a mistake. I had them inverted. But the point is, look at the difference in the size. Okay, it'll be significant. So that will be very important because we deal in interactive applications. So we need the computer to have plenty of things to think about. So we constantly need to monitor how much memory we're using. Okay, we will continue working on this concept tomorrow, day 2. For now, I hope you are excited because now you can start putting actual images on your objects that make it look a lot more real. So in the next scene, or in the next video, I think we're going to do a little bit of cylindrical mapping. So I think that'll be fun. So I will see you next time.